We'll now move into extended reach operations with our aerial lifting eye by utilizing our two 200-foot rope bags. Examples of necessity for this operation would be large parapet walls on roofs, overcoming fences, or large downslopes such as over the side of the highway. I'll have Ethan set up our operation for us. The first step will be to get the terminal ends of the rope bags, which are pre-tied in figure eights. Ethan will then access the cache of carabiners located in the blue bag attached to the Stokes basket. Ethan then will ensure the gates of the carabiners are opposing when he attaches them to the lifting eye, and then secure his ropes to the carabiners, locking the gates. At this point, we're secured to the aerial tip. The officer or person running the scenario will motion to our aerial operator to raise the aerial to our determined length. So I'm gonna make contact with Andy. You good? We're gonna go for a raise. Once we've raised the aerial to our predetermined height, we're going to tie a married figure eight knot as our connector for our bridle. Clean up your knot, sure it's good. Well, again, we're gonna take two carabiners. We're gonna go through each of the knots for redundancy. Attached to our bridle's O-ring. Just kind of hold that up. At this point, we want to tension our system, so motion to your aerial operator for lift. Once we have our system tensioned, we can check our bridles, make sure there's no twists, adjust the length, and make sure everything is even. At this point, we've checked our bridle, our basket's level, there's no twists, and we will secure our ropes to the ends of the basket utilizing a Prussix and carabiner. At this point, we're set up for Stokes basket operations without an attendant. Perfectly acceptable to fly the basket this way if you don't need an attendant on the system. If you have a patient that requires an attendant or a situation where you feel more comfortable with an attendant flying with the basket, we'll move into securing an attendant into the system. To add an attendant into the system, the attendant will first tie a Prussix cord to one of the main lines connected to the aerial tip. Utilizing the Aztec, the attendant will then clip one end of his Aztec to the Prussix, ensuring that the blue Prussix cord in the system is facing up. Next step will be to clip into the harness. For a secondary connection point, the rescue will utilize the pre-rigged Purcell Prussix and clip into the O-ring on the bridle. At this point, we have our attendant rigged into the system. I'll motion to my aerial operator to raise and load the system with the attendant. Before we lift our attendant off the ground, it's important to let the attendant check all of his connections and hardware for safety. Once your attendant's good, you can begin operations. For an example today, we're going to lift Rylan up on the top of Station 41, overcoming a parapet wall, lowering him down to a potential victim. Once all members involved are ready, we can begin operations. We'll begin by lifting. We want to lift just high enough to tension our system, let our attendant check his connection points. At this point, our attendant can check his connections, check his height with the Aztec, and ensure he's comfortable being lifted off the ground. Rylan, you good? Our attendant's good. We'll begin the raise. At this point, I don't have good visuals of the edge or the roof. Once our attendant is able to have contact with our aerial operator, whether that's by hand signals or radio, those two should communicate and establish their plan of action.
Stand out approximately 20 feet. Go straight down. There.
Ideally, we'd like to have a second person on the roof if there's access, whether we've laddered the building, there's some kind of manway through a vertical ladder, through a manhole in the ceiling. Having two people, and ideally someone up top to be edge control and to be another set of eyes from the top would be ideal. So at this point, our edge control person or attendant up top and our basket attendant will package in our patient. When our attendant's ready, they'll motion that they're okay. Make sure everyone is ready. At this point, I don't have a good view, so Rylan and the aerial operator, the attendant and the aerial operator will communicate with one another to begin the lowering process. And that concludes our training utilizing the aerial lifting eye with two 200-foot rope bags, our stoke basket, and an attendant rigged into the system.